Well, hey there, friendships. Welcome back to Curtis' Corner. If you're new here, hi, I'm Curtis. This is my corner, and on today's Film Friday, we are going to be discussing the final part of the decades from the 2000s. So, if you've missed every other video within this playlist, I will link it right up there for you to go and check out. I've done every decade so far up to this latter half of the 2000s. Tomorrow, I will have a review for the brand new Hellraiser for you up on this channel as an extra bonus Film Friday. And next week, I will give you the review for Halloween Ends. So stay tuned for that. I'm super excited. However, we're gonna jump in. We got 26 films to cover and quickly chat about in this video. So if you're interested to see my top 26 films of the latter half of the 2000s, then keep on watching. So coming in at number 26, we have the movie Shrooms. This film, it is low budget, but it helps being low budget. I think it is really well done. It shows different perspectives throughout the film, and I find the paranoia that you get with the characters as you follow along with them, and the stalker-esque serial killer that's following these group of people within the woods, I find that it all really builds up to the big giant twist that happens at the end of the film that I did not see coming and I thought was brilliant. However, I just think the rest of the films on this list are just a bit better than this. And if you have not seen Shrooms, definitely give it a watch if you can. Coming in at number 25, we have Underworld: Rise of the Lycans. This is a prequel within this entire franchise. It predates the very first Underworld and kind of shows the initial reason why the Lycans and the vampires are at war. You have Michael Sheen reprising his role as Lucian, and Bill Nye reprising his role as Victor. We see a side of Victor we never actually got to see in the first Underworld, and I liked his character development within this film, and you can actually understand where he's coming from, but at the same time, they still make him out to be the villain. Now, that being said, the ending of the film, well, it depicts the flashback scenes that we did end up seeing in the first one, I think, beautifully and very spot on. The ending of the film, they kind of leave it as a mystery as did a character survive? But we know that they survive as they're in literally the first Underworld film, and this takes place before it. So it's almost like, why try to leave it very ambiguous at first? I mean, they immediately prove that this character is moving on to the next film, but for a moment, they do leave it ambiguous as to whether or not this character survives or not, and to me, I find it's completely unnecessary. However, the practical effects, the storyline, I think everything is amped up. It's so good. It's very captivating, and the setting being almost like a medieval times, swords instead of guns, I think adds so much more to the story of the Underworld franchise. Coming in at number 24, we have Sweeney Todd, the Demon Barber of Fleet Street. You know me, you know I like Tim Burton, and you know that I like Johnny Depp. This is horror meets musical. Wonderful. There's gore, there's music, it's a great story. Everything about it is beautiful. My only critique, and I get why they went with it because it's very stylistic choice and the immediate contrast, but how cartoony and vibrant the blood is where you are kind of taken out of the world that they are building onto this. Not too much so, because the storyline is still really good and keeps you interested the whole time. Had the blood been maybe a shade or two darker, I think it would have elevated it to a whole other level. But again, I understand you wanting it to be almost like that Sin City type vibe where everything is very dark, gray, gloomy, and then you have that brightness of color. It works for what it is and what it's supposed to be. I just think it could have been elevated a little bit more had they have darkened the tone of it. However, the acting is superb, the songs are catchy, and it's just a fun, enjoyable watch. So watch it. Coming in number 23, we have Resident Evil Extinction. This one, I really enjoyed this one. It's not a great storyline, but like I've said before, the Resident Evil movies are very much a guilty pleasure of mine, and Extinction is no stranger to that. Milla Jovovich is back again as Alice, and they also start bringing in some new characters like Kmart, who I don't recall being an actual character from the video games at all, but they do bring in Claire Redfield, who is played by Ali Larter. I think Ali Larter is a fantastic addition to this franchise. I think she's a great actress. I really enjoy her depiction of Claire. I think they could have made her character go a little bit more. However, I think she was a wonderful addition to this. And I'm a sucker for supernatural kind of stuff, so the fact that they started giving Alice powers, I loved it. I think, however, they gave her too many powers where she became unstoppable, and that's not what I like. I want to be able to see a struggle between the main character and its villains. While she does kind of struggle, she doesn't, I find, struggle enough as she should have. Because, I mean, she really shouldn't have powers, but I could see the direction they were going with, and to try and do something new and keep the franchise alive and as popular as it was. Coming in at number 22, we have The Eye. This is by no means a great acted film. However, Jessica Alba does do her best with the script that she is given. The premise of the film, it is wonderful. It is an American remake of a Japanese film as well. It's a very creepy concept. It terrifies me thinking that if I need an eye transplant one day, that I'm going to see demons and ghosts and like horrific things. As a kid, when I started watching this, I've seen this maybe 3 times. When I first saw it, I had to walk out of the theater because I was getting traumatized. Upon rewatch, I thoroughly enjoyed everything that was happening on the screen, and I enjoyed, even for the cheap jump scares that they do have, I enjoyed them because you knew they were coming, you knew what you were going to kind of expect with the visuals of this, and I still think that the visuals can hold up to today's standards, and I think it's a fun, nonsense kind of film that you can just put on and watch when you have nothing better to do. It does not compare to The Ring. I think The Ring did a much better job at an American adaptation. However, you could see that this film was trying to do that. It just didn't quite hit the mark, but it is still a very enjoyable film to watch and rewatch. Coming in at number 21, we have Monster House. Now I know what you're thinking.
But why are you putting a children's film on this list?
Well, I'll tell you why, because it is a horror film for kids. When you really think about it, if you're not old enough to kind of watch this, you're going to be traumatized as a child. This is a great film, though. The animation is superb. The storyline is wonderful. The acting is fantastic. And you feel for the kids who are exploring this house and trying to figure out what exactly is happening in their little neighborhood. I think it is a fun storyline, and you will never go wrong at all watching this film. I think it's definitely an animated classic for sure within the horror genre, and I think it is a fun, easy way to start introducing your kids to horror as well. If you want them to kind of get on that horror level with you, this is definitely something that you can show to them and sit down with them and just kind of watch and enjoy together. Coming in at number 20, we have Saw 3. This was a wonderful ending to a perfect trilogy. They didn't need to necessarily go on and on and on with this film series. However, they did. You know my thoughts on some other Saw films as well. But this is a really good entry into the franchise, and it should have ended and capped off right at the end of this. I think it would have been perfect. I think the storyline they were going for was wonderful. The traps and the gore were good. I am glad they didn't take it as far as they could have. I'm glad they kept it kind of a little more subdued than they did in the later sequels. And I think the acting just got better and better as this trilogy went on. My only downside, I think, to this film is that it was just another test for someone that had already passed the initial test. And it was almost like, okay, here's where we're starting to run out of ideas. That was the slight miss moment for me. Otherwise, it was, again, enjoyable. I enjoy the whole Saw franchise, and that's actually on my list to rewatch the whole franchise this entire month. Coming in number 19, we have The Strangers. This one is absolutely terrifying. It's a home invasion. 2 people are left alone in their house, and 3 people wearing masks come and start chasing them down, kidnapping them, tying them to chairs, torturing them, threatening them, you name it. They are doing it, and it is terrifying. The fact that it's also, I'm gonna say loosely, based on a true story, or even just the fact that this can actually happen, is absolutely terrifying, and I love it. The gore is very minimal, but the scares are very real, and they are very entertaining to see Scott Speedman and Liv Tyler portraying their characters in this. Number 18, we have Friday the 13th from 2009. Now, The first time that I ended up watching this, I shut it off. It kind of made me angry the first time I started watching this because I knew Jason didn't run. I knew in my mind, I went into this being like, why is he running? I don't like this. This makes me angry. I'm over this. And I turned it off. Then I sat down and I rewatched it again. And I finished it. And I actually kind of enjoyed it. I think this is a good attempt at trying to do something new, where the opening credits was literally the first one where it's Pamela Voorhees, but then they kind of do a midsection for, I would say, a good third of the movie is Jason wearing a sack over his head, and that is essentially all we're getting as a remake of Friday the 13th 2. The rest of the film is the rest of the franchise where he has his hockey mask. I think it is a great attempt. I think the fact that he actually runs is a little more menacing because now he can really actually catch up to you, and there's less of a supernatural factor. We know it's still a supernatural factor because he's supposed to have been this boy that drowned and died, and now he's back to seek revenge. But I think the fact that he runs and he's just so massive and bulky really, I find, works for this film and the time that it was made. And I think it brought Jason back into the limelight and made you want to have another one, which we are getting, and I'm so excited for. Coming in number 17, we have Dead Silence. This film brings puppets to a whole new level of terror. I don't like ventriloquist puppets. I will never like ventriloquist puppets, and this film solidifies me not liking ventriloquist puppets. They are terrifying, they are creepy, and the fact that the woman who controls them is out to kill you, and if you scream, she eats your tongue. It's all just 7 levels of yuck. But it is so fun to watch. It is not a great script at all, but the scares are really good, the visuals are really good, and I really enjoy the story that they were trying to go with. The acting is very hit or miss in this film, but I think it's a film that anyone who watches it is going to get some enjoyment out of, and you're not going to leave disappointed. And if you do, there's the door and you can leave. Number 16 is Coraline. Yes, I am classifying this as a horror because the visuals in this are creepy as hell. This is another animated stop motion film, and this is another one that you can definitely show to your kids, especially if they've seen Monster House or even Paranorman. Those are some good films if you want to introduce your kids into the horror genre. Coraline is definitely a really good storyline, fantastic animation. I love stop motion animation, and I think this is top tier stop motion animation, and the visuals and the other mother being the antagonist the whole time is just, it is a lot to take in, but it is so almost refreshing to this genre of seeing animation and horror coming together, and I think it blends really well together, and I really do wish that there are more horror animated films because I think that they would do so well within this genre. At number 15, we have Rob Zombie's Halloween from 2007. I actually really enjoyed this remake. I don't think it holds up to what the very first or even Halloween 2 from 81 holds the standards of, but I think this is a really well done remake, and it makes Michael very scary. Most of the film, I will say, touches upon him as a child, him understanding that he's not functioning properly. It has a lot more of the Michael and Loomis connection and relationship between them, and you see more of the upbringing and why Michael has become the way that he is from childhood to adulthood. I like the more explorative background. It kind of not makes you understand why he's doing it, but it makes you understand how he's become this evil entity. And the fact that he's just enormous is terrifying. The mask is a great mask to have for this new, darker, gritty version of Michael Myers. And I would say the only downfall would be Taylor Scout Thompson, I think that's who it is, as Laurie Strode. I do not like her as Laurie. I don't think she has a lot of good character development. I think she was a little too cringy a lot of the time. She was just an unlikable final girl. And that's really all I have to say really bad about it. I think the kills were great. The acting for the most part was good. Again, I really don't like the version of Laurie Strode in this film. I much prefer Jamie Lee Curtis's version a whole lot better. Coming in number 14, we have The Covenant. This, I want to say, was my sexual awakening without me realizing that it was. Think The Craft but boys. It has Sebastian Stan in it. They all have magic powers. They're all male witches. They fight each other and they train, and it's fun. It is a fun film. Again, the acting not great, but witches, magic, you get a step up in my books. This film is so fun. I've seen it probably like 4 or 5 times. I really enjoy this film a lot, and I probably enjoy it a lot more than I actually should, because, I mean, the only time that really everyone's just like, ooh, ah, over is the one 30-second like pool scene, maybe minute long pool scene, where they're all in little like Speedos. That's it. Otherwise, they're fully clothed, and they're just doing things, casting magic, and fighting each other. However, it is fun, it is enjoyable, and I don't think you'll hate watching it. You might cringe because of how dated it seems, but I think you'll enjoy watching it if you've never seen it. At number 13, we have Zombieland. I think this is a fun entry into the horror franchise. It takes zombie hunting to a whole new level. You get a whole list of rules, and if you follow them, you can survive a zombie apocalypse. I think it is smart, I think it is funny, I think it is action-packed, and there are some genuine scares that can happen within this film. The character development of all 4 of the characters that are in this is outstanding, and I love the relationship between them all and the banter. And then the cameo is wonderful. I won't spoil it in case the 2% of you that have not seen it, I don't want to spoil it for you, but the cameo in this is really great. Even though I'm not a big fan of this person, it's still funny to see them in it, and I enjoy how everything kind of plays out in this film. And I still have yet to see the sequel, but I will get to it, and I will add it to my list as well for future video. But Zombieland is definitely part of my few favorites that I enjoy from this decade, and I don't think it's going to go anywhere anytime soon. Coming in number 12, we have Quarantine. This is an American remake of a Spanish film called Rec. The exact, almost shot for shot, apparently. I haven't seen Rec, but I love Quarantine. I thought it was well done. The only disappointment to me is the fact that in the trailer, they actually show a lot of the final scenes within the film, and I don't like seeing that. I don't like, yeah, in a trailer, you're seeing things happen, and you're not sure if that's going to be at the end, if it's somewhere in the middle, if it's near the beginning, until you actually see the film, and you're like, oh, well, I've already seen this, so it's not as, creepy anymore. Studios, just stop showing the ending of your film in the trailer. You can market your film by keeping a lot of your film hidden to keep the interest and not showing too much, and just don't show the ending. Otherwise, people are going to walk out being disappointed. Otherwise, acting is great. I really, really enjoyed the visuals and everything that happens in this, and how tight and almost claustrophobic the whole setting feels once you get to the apartment that this news crew is going to investigate. Coming in at number 11, we have Paranormal Activity, jumping off of Quarantine, which was a found footage style film. This is another found footage style film. This is the one that essentially made found footage popular. Blair Witch started it way back in the day, but this is the one that brought it to new ground and made it the phenomenon that it actually is. Paranormal Activity is one of my favorites. The whole franchise is kind of a mess. No answers were ever given about any and all questions that we've had. First one, second one being a prequel to that, third one being a prequel to that one, the fourth one being a sequel to the first, and then the fifth one was like its own story but somehow tying into the second one, and then the sixth one was a sequel to the third one but also a sequel to the fourth one. It was very messy. And then the seventh one doesn't even have anything to do with anything. It was a lot. However, the first one that started this all, fantastic. Visuals, amazing. Acting, I think, is exactly where it needs to be. The fact that these are not real trained actors is perfect for a movie like this, because it does make it seem more of like a home video style of film, which is exactly what they were going for. The budget being so small also really helped the advertising for this film to make it seem super, super real. And honestly, I think the only downfall would be the character of Mika. I don't think he was a super likable character, but Katie was definitely, obviously, the main focus of this entire franchise, but I think she kicked the ball way out of the park. Hit the ball out of the park? I don't do sports. Her character was great. I loved Katie in every film that she appeared in this franchise, and I think she was phenomenal and I'm so glad that they kind of revolved the story around her throughout the whole franchise. But this one is just, it's top tier. Nothing has gotten better than this, and I'm really actually looking forward to the 8th to see if they can kind of top it and answer some more questions that we all still have burning within us. Now for my top 10. Coming in at spot number 10, we have The Exorcism of Emily Rose. This film, because it's based off of true events, some of the things they had to change because of legal reasons, make it a little more fabricated because Hollywood. But for the most part, these are the events that actually took place to somebody, and that is absolutely terrifying. Possession movies are always going to be horrifying to me, but I will still always watch them because I find they are fun and enjoyable to watch, and I love feeling scared and nervous and tense all at the same time while watching these films. I think the practical effects that they use are absolutely phenomenal, and the main actress who plays Emily Rose actually did a lot of her own stunts. So when you see her contorting and twisting and bending, that's her doing it, and it's not visual effects. And I think that is absolutely outstanding. The fact that they're bringing up that level to a whole other spot, it's just wonderful. Coming in spot number 9, we have The Ring 2. I think this was a decent sequel after The Ring. The Ring blew it out of the park. Blew it out of the park? You know what I mean. The Ring was great. Ring 2 was a really solid sequel. It continued the storyline essentially pretty much maybe a couple of years after where it left off, but I think it was a really good sequel, and bringing back the characters from the past movie is wonderful. It still follows the same characters, and it's still almost the same kind of premise, but it's just on a wider scale, and I really appreciated that they kind of changed the formula a little bit to enhance the storyline and where this franchise could go. And number 8, we have the Amityville Horror. Now, I've never seen the original one. It is on my list of things to do, and eventually I will get back to my scare score to continue the Conjuring series that I had started on there. But as well, I want to watch all of the 23 and counting Amityville Horror films that are in that whole messy franchise as well. However, this version with Ryan Reynolds, I think it is wonderful. I have seen this maybe 3 times. Ryan Reynolds in a serious role is so good, like unbelievably good. I think the visuals on this are fantastic. It has a young Chloe Grace Moretz who plays his daughter in this as well. And I think her acting, as young as she is absolutely wonderful. I think the storyline was really good. I think they could have elevated the scares a little bit more. Now, mind you, when the first time I did watch it, I had like nightmares, but I was also younger. Upon rewatch, it's not as scary as I do remember it, but I think they definitely should have elevated the scares and definitely made it a lot scarier than it was. And I think that could have benefited a lot and probably would have had a more positive reaction from a lot of people. But this is definitely a film that is treasured by me, and I really enjoy the creative roadways that they took when making this film. And number 7, we have Underworld Evolution. This is the second film in the Underworld franchise, and this one brought the Underworld franchise to a whole other level. I think this one is the best one in the entire franchise. Kate Beckinsale as Celine is phenomenal, and just the threat that she has to face within this film has been doubled. It is upping the ante definitely a lot and still keeping the practical effects. They have not really gone CGI. Some of it has, but for the most part, it is still very practical. And I think in this franchise, practical is best. You can never go wrong with practical, especially in a franchise like this, where you only need certain close-ups here and there, and you want the actors to actually be interacting with something and not nothing. Underworld is probably one of my favorite franchises out there, and I think this one, it gets the gold medal in the franchise. It is top tier Underworld movie, simple as that. And number 6, we have Silent Hill. I've never played the games. I'm too nervous to play the games. The film, the visuals, delicious. It is so good. I remember watching it for the first time, hating severely the nurses, loving Pyramid Head, loving the visuals that we get within this, and not having too much CGI happen. The CGI that does happen really is effective in this, and I find works to create a fun balance of reality and fantasy within this world, and it ups the horror level visually so much more when we get into the decaying world that is Silent Hill. And I think everything that happens within this film is just so creepy and enjoyable to watch that you're always wanting to know what's going to happen next. At number 5, we have Jennifer's Body. This is probably one of my all-time favorite films. I love this film, and mainly for one reason, because it helped me get over the atrocities that was A Nightmare on Elm Street remake. This is Amanda Seyfried and Megan Fox at their best. The marketing was so poorly done. No one went to go and see this film, so it bombed severely. However, everyone is loving it now. And honestly, I promise you, if you've never seen this film, you will love it. It is so good. It is very tongue-in-cheek humor. It is dark humor. It is light humor. It is fun. It is just an enjoyable roller coaster of a ride to kind of get through this film, and you're always just taking in everything that is presented to you on the screen and never questioning it and just taking it for what it is and thoroughly enjoying the ride that you're on. Number 4 is 30 Days of Night. Vampires. Already love it. Creepy looking vampires. Love it even more. The fact that the movie takes place in Alaska. We've never seen this before. Beautiful. Loving it even more. Now you're telling me they have to survive in Alaska against these vampires who are out all the time because, based off how the earth spins, there's now a whole month in Alaska that gets no sun? I'm sold. I'm sold. This is genuinely scary. The vampires are terrifying. And the fact that the whole movie, I would say, a good 90% of the film is filmed at night. The only time you see daytime is at the beginning of the film and at the end of the film. Otherwise, it is nighttime in this film, and it is terrifying because there's not really anywhere that you can hide in Alaska that is all just completely open. Go watch it. Number 3, we have Saw 2, my favorite Saw out of the entire franchise. This one elevated from a small space that we got in Saw to a larger, more maze-like atmosphere, and I thought it worked so well. The twist at the end was absolutely wonderful. I did not see that coming at all. Even though we were told throughout the film what the twist was going to be, you still were just invested in the back and forth between this cop who's interrogating the Jigsaw killer and trying to locate his son, who's playing the Saw game with all of these other prison inmates. And it is genuinely such a good twist, such a good story, such good practical effects, everything. This was where Saw needed to be for the rest of the franchise. They shot themselves in the foot by making this the second film in the series, because if they had have saved a storyline like this for later on, it could have capped off this whole franchise as something super, super good. But the fact that this is the second one, everything after this went downhill. Progressively took a step down with each film. If you are looking for a film that has a fantastic storyline, fantastic acting, great twist, and just so fun just to watch and enjoy, this is the film for you. At number 2, we have Final Destination 3. This is not everyone's favorite, but this is my favorite in the Final Destination franchise because I love roller coasters, I love amusement parks, and the fact that they're making that now scary, that's kind of fun. The kills in this are great. I like the visuals that they use to kind of figure out who is going to die next. And to this day, I still quote the song that is played on the radio near the end of the film. Always. I will always sing this song to a friend that I'm walking with, especially at night, to creep them out, because it is so deliciously wonderful. Mary Elizabeth Winstead plays the main character in this, and then the fact that we finally get kind of like a closer of what death is actually after at the end of this broadens the whole outlook on the whole franchise. Because with the first and the second, you're still kind of unsure as to what's kind of happening, but with the third, it's a definite thing. This is always going to be a present thing in your life that you're always going to have to avoid, and that's what I really enjoyed, because it definitely switched the franchise in a different direction, and I like how it did that. And finally, my number 1 horror film of the 2000s from 2005 to 2009 is Cloverfield. I love monster movies. I love monster movies. I love found footage films. You put them together, you have me sold immediately. This is such a good film. The acting is absolutely wonderful. There are comedic points in this film that ease the tension, but flow with how someone would genuinely react in a situation like this. I think the visuals are absolutely wonderful. The practical effects that they use are absolutely wonderful. The camera work, because it's found footage, really works with this, and it brings a whole level of reality and scares all together and just meshes it perfectly like a nice little chocolate cake. If you don't like chocolate cake, well, that's the analogy I'm using. You can think of a different dessert that you enjoy. I'm excited that we are finally getting a sequel to this Cloverfield film to explore this world a lot more and not just a spawn-off, has nothing to do with anything film at all. So I'm glad that they're actually moving forward with a sequel, an exact sequel to Cloverfield. And I'm looking forward to that a lot. So that is my top 26 of the latter half of the decade. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you agree with my opinions, my ranking, or if you disagree, let me know. What would you change, or what would you add? What would you take out? Leave me in the comments down below. Make sure you hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel because I put out weekly videos, and hit that notification bell so you know when I post a brand new video, because if you don't, how else are you going to know when I post? You won't. So do it. I'm hoping that I have my package for a review on Monday because I ordered something. I'm excited to receive it. If I don't have it, I might just do a fall look for you. And if I do have it, then I will have a review for you. I will see you next Friday, though, for sure, for a review on Halloween Ends. But until then, goodbye, friendships.